All right, here we are for our first video on Civ 7. I'm going to run through the starting age. I'm going to show you the things you really need to focus on now that I've had some time to actually play the game in depth. Lots of mechanics are different from Civ 6. I'm going to highlight those where it makes sense, but ultimately, even if you're not familiar with Civ 6, you'll be able to get a lot out of what are the main mechanics of Civ 7 to focus on in the early game. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start a new game here and walk through some explanation of some of this that you're going to see. First thing I want to point out that's different, you've got a level now, and this level unlocks mementos that you can use with your leaders. Now I'm going to leave this game set on random. It's going to pick whichever one, but you can see here these mementos. Some of them I've unlocked down to here. There's a bunch more that are still locked for me, but these actually can make some pretty good benefits to the game as you uncover some of these. I like to start for now with expansion. That's going to give me faster settlers. And then let's see the other ones that I have unlocked. Let's go ahead and do some extra happiness. We'll go with that for now. So on your first game, you're not going to have these, but as you get experience and unlock things, you'll be able to get more of these. So random leader. We're going to start in the Antiquity Age. I'm also going to do random civilization. We're going to roll with whatever the game gives us here. Difficulty, you've got 6 choices. You've got game speed, 5 different choices here. And then map types. The map types I've found are not all that great. I just leave it on Continents Plus for now. I'm sure that'll get better over time, but for now, Continents Plus is fine. That's going to give you 2 main continents plus a number of small islands that you can find in the map. And then map size we'll leave at small for now as well. The advanced options, it's a lot of the same stuff. You just see these few extra advanced things. You can change the age length. You can change the disaster intensity. You can turn off crisis, which is a new thing for Civ 7. Basically, this just adds an event at towards the end of the age that puts a bunch of debuffs on you depending on what the crisis is, and you have to manage through a difficult time. And then you can put seeds in there if you got them. So that's the advanced settings there. And then you can get into the player settings here and change that up as well if you wanted to set specific leaders. And you can set which civilization each of those leaders is attached to as well. We're going to leave it like that and launch it.
A great dais rises from the earth, heralding a new.
Now, as I go through this video, I'm going to cut out the boring stuff, but I will talk through the things that really matter kind of as they happen. You'll be able to see the game evolve and see where some of these new changes pop into play. Lots of screens. I've not yet turned off the tutorials. I'm gonna do that real quick here in options somewhere. I think it's in the game tutorial level. I'm gonna set this to only warnings. I haven't actually changed this yet. I left the tutorials on just so I can read them and see the different stuff. We'll see what only warnings gives us together here and see how that goes. Now, right away, one of the things that is way different about Civ 7, where you found your city related to yields, is much less important. So I'll go ahead and turn yields on so you can see them. But the reality is the way Civ 7 plays, the way that tile improvements work and the way that buildings work, you can make any tiles decent tiles to work. And so really what you're looking for is resources. Those are really important. So this is resource jade, this is resource wool, salt. We have another jade over here. We have pearls up there as well. So you want to find a spot where you've got a bunch of resources within your 3 tiles or 3 hexes. You have the same city build out. So once a city is founded, I can work hexes up to 3 away. So I've got right here 5 resources within this start location. So that's really good. Another thing to consider would be proximity to water, proximity to mountains, because mountains also can give some good buffs in buildings. We'll talk about that later on. But for now, I'm just going to settle this in place. It doesn't really benefit me to try and move to one of these other tiles to found a city there. Now with your first settler, when you settle, you're going to get a city. Now Civ 7 differentiates between cities and towns. Any new settlers that I build from here, what I build is going to start off as a town. This is a city. Towns you'll see later on, and we'll talk more about them, what the differences are when I build my first one. But know that your first settler is always going to give you a city. And you'll see the yields here, 6, 5, and 5. That's because my palace gives 5 food, 5 production, and 5 happiness. For production here, you'll notice the first unit that you build is going to be done in 1 turn, whether it's a warrior or a scout. You could pick either one of these. You get it in the first turn because the production cost of both is only 1, just for your first one. After you build this first one, it'll go to normal production, and you'll see that number go up. So I've started to move my scout around here, and you'll see with the next turn now I can choose a tech. Sailing, animal husbandry, and pottery are your choices. What you want to look for here, if you notice, read the description of these. +1 production on clay pits, mines, and quarries. Okay, that's a big bonus. And then you get +1 food to plantation, +1 production on clay pits. Okay, so the first one is related to building the brickyard building. And so that'll be a building that's beneficial if you have lots of clay pits, mines, and quarries within your city. And then just understanding or gaining this tech itself, you're going to automatically get +1 food on plantations, and you're going to get +1 production on clay pits. Now, if we look at animal husbandry, it's similar. It gives you a building saw pit, and the saw pit is useful for camps and woodcutters. Okay, and then in addition to that, you get +1 production on camps and woodcutters, and you get +1 food on pastures. And then sailing, as you might guess, you're going to get a building for the water, fishing K. That gives you +1 food on fishing boats. And then you'll see you get standard units, traverse coast, and +1 food on your fishing boats that aren't the actual building itself. The reason that I have you read those and point those out is you have to look at the terrain around your city. Okay, where you see trees, when you improve those are going to add woodcutters if you just improve this tile to work it. Where you see things like salt, you're going to add mines. And you'll also see like these stones over here. If I was to improve this tile with stones on it, it's going to add a mine. When you improve flatland, tundra, grassland type things, you're going to put a farm on that. Okay, and then obviously water is going to give you boats. So when you go back and look at these, which one should I do first? You really have to look at your city and figure out, are you going to have more mines or clay pits? Are you going to have a lot of camps and woodcutters? Or are you going to be using the water quite a bit first? That's what you should think about for your first research. Now, in this case, I'm going to have a few woodcutters potentially, and then even further out, more woodcutters. I'm going to have a lot of mines as well. So I could go with pottery, or I could go with animal husbandry for this first one based on this city start location. I'm going to go ahead and start with animal husbandry. That's also going to open up the first ranged weapon unit. And so I want that pretty soon. Sooner rather than later. So I'm going to go ahead and pick animal husbandry, but that's the thinking that you need to do when you think about what should I research first. Look at your city and see what type of terrain you have around it and what type of improvements you're going to have more of first. Research that technology first. And then for production, I'm going to go ahead and do a scout. So I have 2 scouts up and running sooner rather than later. Now, just looking at the city here, you've got this number here is the city size. The number below it tells you how many more turns until the city grows. And then this is what you're currently producing and the number of turns until that thing is produced. You can see here the city is overall happy. That's another thing that you'll notice that change. If your city starts to get sad, you'll see that smiley face change. At this point, my city has grown and it allows me to improve one of the tiles. Now, a few things are different here than what you're used to in Civ 6. One, you can't buy hexes anymore, okay? You will get a hex when you choose to improve a tile. What it'll do is it'll do like a culture bomb or a loyalty bomb, where if I pick this tile or this hex, it's going to automatically include these 3 that touch it in the borders of my new city. So every time you expand, whatever hex you select, any tiles that you don't currently have within your borders will get included in your borders, up to 3 hexes in all directions from the city center. Another thing to note here is it gives you the symbol of what's going to be built if you improve that hex. So you see the pile of wood, that means woodcutter is going to be built here. You see the chicken, that means a farm is going to be built here. You see the barrel with fish in it, that's boats. And then you see the mine cart, that means you're going to get a mine if you improve that hex. That goes back to what I had said about choosing the tech first. The first tech that you're going to pick, you want to pick it based on what kind of improvements you're going to end up with around your city. Now, there's a couple of ways to approach this. Salt, if you look at the bonus, 20% production towards training units. That's pretty good because I'm going to be cranking out some units here as we get going still. Another potential strategy is to start expanding your borders towards your other resources. So you look, wool is 2 production, 2 happiness. Jade is 15% gold. There's another jade up here. And then there's the pearls up here, which is 2 happiness to the capital or 4 happiness to any other city. And so thinking about this, I am actually going to go, I think, in this direction here. I want the 2 food so that my city starts to grow more faster, and it gives me happiness as well. It also pushes me out towards the pearls and gets me this jade also. Now, while I'm in here, let me also talk about your yields for city, because these are a little bit different. When you see food, you're no longer worried about, it doesn't show you how much food you need to sustain the city. Just all food is surplus. Okay, and production is production like you're used to. Gold, similar to food, it's just going to show you where you're at. It will show you negative if you're losing money, or positive if your city is gaining money. Science is just the net of how much you're producing. Culture as well. Happiness also shows you, are you up or down, you know, positive or negative based on all the attributes of the city. And then this last thing here is influence. I'll talk about influence in a bit. Food is important because you're trying, similar to the earlier versions of Civ, basically you have this is hidden, you don't see it, but you have a hidden green, a hidden granary. That's what I'm trying to say, not a greenhouse. You have this level that you need to fill your surplus with in order to grow your city by 1 more. You can see that in a different screen. You don't see it here, but you can see how much you need to fill. But ultimately, more food means you're going to grow faster. The end. The other thing that's different, let me actually get out of this screen and come into the, not this screen. I'm still trying to learn all these screens. They're, this is the one I was looking for. Happiness. What happiness does is, similar to the food, you have this level that you need to hit of cumulative happiness, and that kicks off a celebration. And when you get a celebration, that opens a policy slot so you can select another policy, which will give you some bonus. And then it also gives you a 10-turn buff that you can pick, and you'll see that later on once we open up the celebrations and we cross that line for the first one. Back to growing the city here. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this chicken, the farm right here. The other thing just to point out is you see, like, this is flat tundra. It's going to give me 2 food and 1 happiness when I select it. So that goes back to what I said, where the location of your city relative to the tile or hex yields around you is much less important than it was in Civ 6. I'm going to go ahead and pick that. You see that my borders have now expanded here, and the tile itself is improved. One of the changes of Civ 7, you no longer have workers, and you don't need to send workers to improve tiles. When you select the tile on city growth, it's going to automatically improve for you. Okay, another thing that's new for Civ 7, you'll see on the scout, you've got some extra features here or abilities. Search increases sight range by 1 for 1 turn, and it reveals discoveries within twice that range. Discoveries you can think of as goody huts. They're basically things that you're going to find out in the world that are going to give you some kind of bonus. Now in this case, I want to move 1, and then I'm going to use this search function. And so watch, you'll see 1 tile in all directions is going to reveal, and then it's going to do this little, like, almost like a wave thing and show me if it finds any of those goody huts. So we've got a goody hut over here. Now this is a coastal one, so I can't get that until I can put units in the water. But you see it revealed extra tiles for me. We've got gold as a resource here. We've got ivory, we've got cotton, and then another salt up there. So those are the keys for starting to think about, where is my next city going to go? You're looking for a good collection of resources where you can put your city somewhere in the middle and within 3 hexes get as much as possible. So right here, this one is looking pretty promising. Because it's 3 to this salt and then also 3 to the gold. Not committing to that yet, but it looks promising based on what we've learned so far. All right, our next scout was built, so I've got 2 scouts total now. The next thing I'm going to build is a granary. I'm not concerned yet with the warrior or building any kind of defense. There's nobody that's going to be right next to me that I need to worry about. Another thing about Civ 7 that's different is you do not have barbarians in the same way that you had them in Civ 6 or any of the previous games. What Firaxis has done is they've combined city-states and barbarians together. So you will find city-states that are hostile to you that will attack you from the start. You can befriend them and make them suzerain, become suzerain of that city state if you want to spend influence to do that. But you're not going to have roaming barbarians. You're not going to have barbarian camps. And so far at least, early game defense is not as relevant as getting your city to grow faster. So we're going to start with putting this granary down somewhere. You'll notice here it says ageless. That's important because that means this building is going to exist through the 3 different ages as it exists when I put it down. It doesn't change benefits. You'll see as we move along, some of the other buildings lose efficiency as the age changes, and you can then replace those buildings. But ageless means it's going to be the same throughout the ages. Another thing that's important to point out here is if you look at the description of this building gets more powerful based on the number of farms, pastures, and plantations in the city. Okay, so building more farms actually increases the granary by +1 food if I build a farm, a pasture, or a plantation. And that is true for however many I build. If I build 5 farms, that's going to be +5. Now, you can see +3 food on 3 of these. If I build here, I'm going to get +4. And if you look over on the left, you see it says adjacency bonuses. This tells me where that extra food is coming from. +1 food from the northeast, which is the salt, and +1 food from the southeast, which is the wool. I didn't actually think this building it doesn't talk about adjacency bonuses in there. But you can see here that it would actually get some. And these others you see, it gets the adjacency bonus from the resource that's there. So I am going to go ahead and stick this here. I had to think about it for a second. I am going to stick it there. And so we'll work on getting that built while we continue to scout around. Okay, I can now start to choose civics. So just like in Civ 6, you have a tech tree, you have a civics tree. Civics are more about the ways that you govern your people, and the tech is the tech. With my first choice, Earthworks, Discipline, Mysticism, I'm picking Mysticism. You'll see what's really important there is the third down unlocks founding a Pantheon. And so that Pantheon is going to give me a bonus that's really important, or can be really important depending on what's left by the time I actually unlock it. The AI typically rushes this pretty hard. So if you don't get this quickly, you're going to choose from the worst benefits, the worst bumps or bonuses from that Pantheon choice. The other thing I can do now is choose a government: Classic Republic, Despotism, Oligarchy. 2 bonuses for each. One's culture focused, one's science focused, one is food focused. These work similarly to what you might think of. Culture opens your civics tree, science opens your tech tree, food means growth, faster growth for your cities. And then you see the additional bonuses here. Republic gives you construction towards wonders. So if you were going to take a more cultural approach or looking for specific wonders early on, that would be the choice. Despotism helps you with infantry production. So if you're playing an aggressive game, that'll help you there. Oligarchy helps you build buildings faster, which is going to give you more resources and a faster timeline for expansion. I'm going to go with Oligarchy because I want my cities to grow faster. I want my buildings to go up sooner as well. Now I also get to add my first social policy. So I've only got 2 available to me right now, +2 culture in the palace or +1 production and science on the palace. I'm going to take the production and science because I'm feeling more of a science-y approach to this. The other thing I get here is a narrative choice. So you'll have these pop up every now and then where some event happens and you get to decide. In this case, I get to decide +50 happiness towards the next celebration or +50 gold. They're both good. Gold allows you to buy stuff, get things faster. I'm going to choose happiness in this case because 50 happiness to celebration means that my next celebration is going to come sooner. That means my next policy slot is going to open up sooner, and I'll have that additional celebration buff sooner as well. Okay, we've uncovered one of the villages here. You can see that their relationship is hostile. It's got the red border around the city or the village name. It's also got a red border around the unit. So that's the indication that it's hostile. It also tells you when you hover over it that they're hostile. So you can see not too far away, they will potentially start coming over and attacking my city. So I am going to need to worry about a little bit of defense here in the not too distant future. You will see you have the ability to purchase units, although it doesn't show because I don't have enough gold to buy anything yet. But soon I will have gold that will allow me to buy units if I need to. And I've now met my first other civilization. You have choices here anytime you meet a new civilization. This is where you start to see what influence does for you. So I can have a friendly greeting, which gives me +20 relationship. That costs me 20 influence. Neutral greeting costs me nothing, and a hostile greeting would cost me 20 influence as well, and that would lead us to a -20 relationship off the bat. I'm going to go ahead and spend the influence to have a friendly greeting and stay on a positive relationship, at least initially, with Amina here. This is the diplomacy screen. You'll see everything costs influence now. If I want to do open borders, it costs 25 influence. Important to note, open borders in Civ 7 works one way. And so if I was to do this, I would get open borders with her. She would not get open borders with me unless she did the same treaty on her end, and I would have to agree to that. So I think that's overall a positive change. It allows you the ability to have open borders with somebody else while not giving them open borders to you. You have this section of endeavors. These are things that we want to try and do together. So if we look at open markets as an example, if I was to propose this, she would have the ability to accept, support, or deny. And I'll show you this again in the future when somebody proposes an endeavor to me. You'll see the options and what those mean. But ultimately, if I proposed this to her and she accepted it, I would receive an extra 4 gold per turn for the duration of this endeavor. Then you have sanctions, which are, I don't like this person and I want to do bad things to them, as well as denouncement there. Okay, so here's an example. Amina has proposed to me sharing military aid. So this is what the endeavor looks like on the other side. I can choose to support it, in which case we both receive +3 combat strength, but that costs me 60 influence. I can accept it, which gives me 2 gold per turn, and it gives her +2 combat strength. Or I can reject it. Notice rejecting does cost 20 influence. Accepting it costs nothing. And so that's often a good choice depending on how much influence you have and what your actual strategy is in managing your relationship with the person, and does the benefit actually benefit you in this moment. But rejecting it cost me 20. Blocked from future endeavors. So for 10 turns, Amina cannot propose anything to me. It also will worsen our relationship. In this case, I want to preserve my influence because I need influence in order to convert this to a city-state that I can be a suzerain of. So I'm going to accept it, which gives me 2 gold, which is more than fine in the short term, and prevents the relationship from getting worse. Okay, both of my scouts have uncovered the Civ 7 version of the Goody Hut. You'll see here this scout has this cairn, and then this scout over here has this tent camp. You get the kind of purpley, glowy lights and fairy dust, whatever, floating around them. That's what they look like. They're all different looks. You can see the tent camp looks one way. This one over here looks a totally different way. But when you see the bluey purple glow light things, that means it's a Goody Hut. And when you move a scout there, also uncovered a new natural wonder. When you move a scout onto a Goody Hut, you get choices. Okay, so this first choice, I can get 50 happiness towards the next celebration and 30 culture, or I can get 45 influence. In this case, I'm going to let my influence just keep ticking up the way it is. What I'm really striving for is to get this city or this village converted. I still need more influence for that, but I'm going to go ahead and take the happiness and culture for now on that one, and then we'll see the other one will be next turn. Okay, another diplomatic action for me here, inviting me for open markets. Now this one I have to think about, because if I accept this, I get 6 gold per turn for 10 turns, 10 or 15 turns. That starts to get a little more meaningful. Do I want to swap 60 influence for 6 gold per turn for however long this lasts? I think it's 15. The alternative is I can accept it. I get 2 gold per turn for free. So really the difference is 4 gold. That's what I'm spending the 60 influence on, is plus 4 gold per turn. Or reject it. I'm not going to reject it. I think I'm going to go with accept again, because I'm prioritizing flipping that village to a happy city state. So we'll go ahead and accept that and get our 2 gold per turn for nothing. And then that other Goody Hut, I can take 15 production to my capital there, or I can get 75 happiness. 15 production doesn't seem to be all that great. I mean, it's basically like two or three turns, 2.5 turns of extra production, or 75 happiness. We're going to go ahead and take that. That's a meaningful amount towards opening my next celebration. And with that, you can see we've actually unlocked it. So when you unlock that celebration, you get to come in here, and based on your government, you get a choice of extending one of your 2 benefits for another 10 turns. So I can choose 20% food. I can choose 30% construction towards buildings. In this case, I'm going to go with the food. 30% towards buildings. Like, I'm only building a building here for a few more turns. At some point, I'm going to switch to units or settlers, so I don't think this is going to help me all that much. And you can see I've only got 2 turns left before, well, that's for my city grows. It's not showing me. I think I just finished production, that's why. So we're going to go with food because I don't anticipate building more buildings right away. Now, also, as I mentioned, with that celebration, I get another policy slot open, so I can go ahead and put in the only choice that I have, which is charismatic leader. And now I'm getting 2 culture a turn as well. For my next build, I am going to pick, let me think about this now. So our choice is saw pit or brickyard. The brickyard gives me +1 production on clay pits, mines, and quarries. Right now, I don't know that I have a mine on the jade. Saw pits give me the production on camps and woodcutters. Even though I have a fair amount of wood spots here, and this is a woodcutter, at least this one is probably going to get torn down, and I'm going to be on the jade sooner rather than later, as well as the salt. And so in that case, the brickyard is going to give me more benefit, and I'm going to put the brickyard here. Now, one thing to notice, when it shows you this in the building right here, it's showing you this is the best possible brickyard you can build based on your current structures, based on all your current improvements, resources available, everything. It doesn't necessarily mean if I build this anywhere and it's going to give me that yield. So when you select that, you can see these are the yields by the different tiles. If I was to build it here, it's going to give me 3 food and 2 production. This is the only spot that I can build it where it's going to give me the 2 food, 2 production, 1 science, and 1 culture. And if you look over on the left, you see those adjacency bonuses again. It tells you where it comes from or how you're going to get that improvement. So the first 2 +1 food that I'm going to get from the northeast, that's the salt, +1 food from the southeast is the resource, the wool. And it's any resource. Those are the resources that happen to be next to it. But if that was jade, if that was gold, doesn't matter what it is. Any resource next to the tile is going to give you that +1 food benefit. And then I've got +1 science, which is actually going to other buildings. Okay, that's going to go, I believe that's going to go to my palace, is going to give me 1 more science because I'm building this here. And then also +1 culture to another building if I build the brickyard here. So it's really confusing when you just look at it at the surface without kind of connecting some dots here. It's not that the brickyard gives me science or culture, it's that building it here gives an adjacency bonus on an existing structure that gives me the science and the culture. And you see that on the left where it says either from the, telling you you're building that, the thing that you're building is getting the bonus, or 2 other buildings means something else is getting that bonus. Now let's see. These notices, like, looks like an old notice, but it looks like it's a new notice. I'm sure they'll address that in the future and make that a little bit better to understand. Now you'll get these events that pop up from time to time, and some of these you'll see this actually gives a potential quest. In this case, it tells you what the quest is right here. If I select this, it's going to give me a quest to train a merchant. If I select this one, it gives me a quest to train 3 infantry. If I select this one, there's no quest. It just gives me the 25 science. So between these 3 things, I'm going to go ahead and select the plus 100 happiness to the next celebration. Now you'll see in the upper left, I've got a journal entry that shows the quest train a merchant. We're going to go ahead and look here in the view social policies. You can see what this looks like. If I go to the overview, it tells me that I'm currently in a celebration. I've got 8 turns left. And then it tells me my income is 7 per turn on happiness. Mysticism is done, and so now I'm picking another civic. Another one that should be a high priority is discipline. This opens up a free commander and allows you to build new commanders. Army commanders are a new concept. They're kind of like a general in that they buff your surrounding units. You can also create armies with the general where the units can kind of pile in. Think of the commander is almost like a transport. Your units can pile in, and then you just move that one commander and it moves all the units that are associated with it. Now also, because I unlocked mysticism, I get to pick a Pantheon. Now you can see here, fertility rites has already been picked, so it doesn't let me get that. It's a slightly different color than the rest. Everything else is still open, and there's quite a few of them, as you can see here. A lot of these are tied to having an altar. So if you see 10% production towards training settlers in cities with an altar, this one requires an altar, this one requires an altar, this one requires an altar. So that's pretty common for a lot of these. The best ones in my mind are at the top, and these are the ones that the AIs always pick first as well. I'm going to pick 3 influence on the altar itself. So when I build an altar, I get +3 influence from it. Now I want to be able to shortcut this here. So in order to do that, I'm going to need to open borders. You can see she accepted it. And so now I've got open borders for the next 15 turns. You can see here always a summary of where things are at. So military aid active for 9 more turns. It tells you I'm receiving the 2 gold. It actually doesn't tell you that. That's annoying. It tells you accepted and supported. It doesn't tell you which one you did. So you have to remember that. I accepted this one, so I'm getting 2 gold. She's getting 2 combat strength. And then it doesn't even tell you on that one. Nice. But with open borders, I can now just move through. You can see there's another goodie hut right there, a luxurious encampment. How exciting. Okay, we've met another new civilization, so we're going to spend the 20 for a friendly greeting. Just keep everybody happy with us for now. Not trying to start any wars or anything. I'd rather focus on building more growth type buildings than have to spend time and energy on a bunch of units. Okay, I've got from this village over here, you can see they've moved a warrior kind of into range here. So I'm going to go ahead and purchase one of the archers. So I've got at least 1 unit here that can do some damage if he keeps moving in. Okay, for the next building here, it's a real choice depending on how you plan on progressing the game. I'm going to choose probably to not build a saw pit just because I'm not going to end up with much wood areas in my city once it's fully developed here. I'm going to go with the library next to increase my science. Now, if we look here, very important are these adjacency bonuses because not only do they increase the immediate production of the building, they also increase specialists later on when you start adding specialists to tiles. So you really want to maximize these adjacency bonuses to get the most value out of the hex. So you'll see in this one, +1 science for adjacent resources, and +1 science for adjacent wonders. And it's got a base of 2. Now, if I come here, you can see I get +1 food from the resource, and that's, I think that's my civilization, my civ benefit. I'll double check that here in a second. I think that's where that's coming from. But I get, for the science building itself, you'll see base 2 yield right here. So I get my 2 yield, and then I get an extra yield from the wool to the east and an extra from the jade to the west. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this right here, and that'll be a pretty good library. And I'm just checking. Yeah, so this is a benefit from the Mississippian Empire. All buildings receive +1 food adjacency for resources. So anytime I build a building anywhere, it's going to get extra food based on resources being around it. Okay, this warrior is causing us some issues here. He's stopped our library. We're going to go ahead and flip over to building a settler now that I can build that. He also damaged the brickyard, which it'll take a turn to repair that. So we'll repair that first, and then we're going to build a settler. Now, one thing you'll see that's different with Civ 7 is your units no longer get experience. They don't have levels. And so I can attack here, and you'll actually see some experience go up, but that experience is for the commander. Okay, so your commanders are the only thing that level now, and you can see you have different trees that you can level them in. Up here shows me I've got 9 of 15 experience points, so when that hits 15, I'll be able to pick a tree to start leveling. But no more experience for your units. Okay, with that first settler built, we're going to start looking for where to build, where to move the city. Now, again, we were prioritizing resources more than anything else. We want to find a good spot for resources. Now you see, you also have freshwater tiles, which are this blue-green, and then you've got the brown, which it also tells you when you hover over, no fresh water available in this tile. The only thing that does for you in Civ 7 is it's a 5 happiness penalty for not having fresh water. So you just get -5 happiness to as a modifier to that city. Generally fairly easily managed through policies and buildings. So it's not a huge hit. It's not something to completely avoid, but if you can build where there's fresh water, you always want to do that. I ignore, these are the recommendation spots. I mostly ignore those. Here would be potentially a good spot for a city. It's got a little bit of overlap pretty quickly in this direction, but building right here gives you the fresh water. It allows you to cover all of this area. It gives you 2 resources here as well as the ivory there. So that's a pretty decent spot. I hesitate to build down here because then you've got, you know, these 2 hexes up here are going to be out of reach, and you'd have to build a city up here in order to cover that. I would have to destroy this to build any closer out there. Another option would be to build maybe somewhere in here. I would consider probably this spot or even this spot. Thing to think about is if I build here, that means I can't build, I could only build like in this row. So that's something else to consider too. What's going to be funny is I said I ignore these, but that might be just where I build. I'm going to build here or here. And I think there. That'll be the other target spot. If I build there, that hits the elephant, the ivory. Yeah, let me go build. I'm going to build this one next, right here. Why? I'll get that ivory. 1, 2, 3. It'll work. I'll work these tiles. It also allows me to grab the iron there. It allows me to grab the dates, and it allows me to get this silver if I build right here. And it's far enough away from other stuff that I've got a good amount of space there. So we haven't talked about this yet, but in Civ 7, you have a settlement limit. Now you can go over this, but as you see from the tooltip at the top here, -5 happiness in all settlements per settlement over the limit to a max of -35. That's a lot. And that's a pretty harsh penalty, considering happiness is how you unlock more social policies and get those extra bonuses based on your government. So we really don't want to go over that, which means it's really important to space your cities out further so that you can cover more ground with fewer cities. That's how I think about it. One other thing you'll notice that I did is I just sent the settler out on his own, even with the hostile city right here. In Civ 7, your settlers do not get captured. They do have hit points just like other units. They can take damage and continue to move. When they run out of hit points, they die. There's no more capturing settlers. But because they have hit points and they can sustain damage and keep going, I'm sending them out just on their own. No big deal. Because they'll make it. Okay, we're building our city. So we've got that phenomenal yields there right off the bat. The other reason I wanted to come down here is to get a little bit closer to this space because I'm sure he's going to potentially push that direction too. I don't want to get completely boxed out. And so just trying to get ins into more territory here. I got so busy doing everything else, I forgot to befriend the independent. So 170 is what it takes in the ancient age. So we're going to befriend this independent. And then what it does is you'll see it creates this timeline down here. So after 15 turns, we're friendly. After 23 turns, the village will convert into a city-state. And then at 30 turns, I get named a Suzerain of that city. Now I can add support for 100 more influence, which will further reduce the number of turns I have to wait for these. I'm going to go ahead and leave it for now. I'm going to maintain my influence. I can always do this later if I want to. And the reason that I might want to do that, other than just getting these bonuses faster, is at this point, one of the other civilizations can also come in and try and befriend them. And then I would be in a competition on who can get it done faster. So in that sense, if that happened, I would want to come in and add influence to try and stay ahead of any competition for Suzerain of this city-state. All right, fighting the hostile. Okay, so fighting the hostile village here, I've now got enough experience on this commander. I can promote him. So as you can see here, I can pick any of these to start off with. Bastion is about defense, really, making a strong defender. Assault is about attacking. Alexa, stop. Bastion is about making a strong defense. Assault is about attacking. Logistics, you'll see, is money making and moving things faster, recovery of hit points, that kind of thing. Maneuvering is about dealing with terrain and flanking bonuses, things like that. You can see there's a zone of control at the end there. Command radius applies zone of control to enemy land units. That's a pretty good one. And then leadership just gives you some general improvements to general combat and recovery. I typically like to start with assault and have somebody good in that. Now you can build multiple commanders. You can level them all up differently. So you've got commanders that work in these different areas and give you different strengths. But I typically start with assault because that ultimately is going to open up additional combat strength for your units. So one for each type of unit: siege, cavalry, ranged, and infantry. And then the last one gives an additional ability that's +5 combat strength when at full health. All right, let's talk a little bit about building now a second building in a hex. So Civ 7 has done away with districts as you know them from Civ 6. You no longer have to build a district before you can start building buildings. You just build the buildings where you want them. Most of the things that you build, at least the buildings, you can have 2 in 1 hex. And so you see here, I've already got a library in this hex. I've got 1 open slot. So I'm looking at building an altar, which gives me a base of 2 happiness. When you're deciding on what to build where, you want to try and build things that give good adjacency bonuses together in the same hex. So this has 3 food adjacency from the civilization perk that I have, +1 food from the east, from the southwest, and the west. The reason that the adjacency bonuses is so important is because later on, when we put a specialist on this hex, it's going to give additional bonuses based on adjacency bonuses of the buildings in the hex. Okay, so the only deciding criteria you should have for what to build in a hex with something else is, do I get a lot of adjacency bonuses? It doesn't matter if you build 2 science buildings together, or if one is a production and one is a happiness building, or none of that stuff matters. The only thing that matters today is what are the adjacency bonuses that you're going to get. So with 3 adjacency bonuses, this is going to be where I build this. I could potentially choose to hold out for something better. But that way I've got 3 more things that will get improved when I put a specialist on that tile in the future. Okay, here's an example with one of these villages where you can see somebody else beat me to meeting them, and they're ahead of me befriending them. So in order for me to catch up, because right now you'll see they'll befriend them at 11, turn into the Suzerain by 26, and I won't get there till 30, so I would lose that race. So if I add 100 support, now I'm ahead, and I'll get it done in 20. So he'll have the option, whoever that, I don't even know what leader that is, but he'll have the option to come in and add support just like I did with influence to try and beat me faster. So we'll continue to monitor that and see who gets there first. Now here in my city, I want to build this marketplace. You can see +1 gold for adjacent coastal terrain, navigable rivers, and wonders. And this is the better spot to put it for gold. What that's going to do is that's going to build over the farm. Now what happens if you build over an improved tile, so a farm, a woodcutter, a mine, etc., what it's going to do, it's going to create that, it says create an urban district, but then you get to pick a different farm tile, or if you want to change it up, you could do that as well. So when you replace those, you don't lose them, you get to move it to a different tile. Another thing to point out while I'm in here, because I can assign specialists now, you can start to see how different tiles benefit from having buildings that give additional yields. So the base for putting a specialist anywhere, and I actually don't have just a plain tile where I can do this yet, but the base is +2 science and +2 culture, -2 food, and -2 happiness. That's going to be your base for adding a specialist. You can only add them to where you have buildings, but if you had no adjacency bonuses at all, that's what you would see. +2 science, +2 culture, -2 food, -2 happiness. In addition to the base, you're going to get ½ a point extra for each 1 point of adjacency bonuses that you're getting from buildings in that tile. So here we have a library and an altar built. Between those 2 buildings, they're getting a total of 6 food from adjacency bonuses. So if I add the specialist here, I get an additional +3 from those adjacency bonuses. I also get an additional 1 science from adjacency bonuses that are awarded to my library You remember that library is a +4. It has +2 adjacency bonus, one from each of these resources. So that's why I have a +3 science here, is because of that library. Now you can see other places here. I've got a monument that has +2 food adjacency bonus, and then it has a +1 culture bonus. So as the specialist, I get half a point for each point. That makes +1 food and an additional +0.5 culture. And that's how these specialist bonuses are calculated, depending on the adjacency bonus. That's the extra that you get. That's where all of it comes from. And you get an extra 0.5 to 1 on the adjacency bonus. So half of your total adjacency bonuses equals the extra bonus from the specialist. But I am not going to choose a specialist at this point. I am going to take probably some more food to continue my growth. The greatest food tile that I can do would be this +3 food, +1 production, +1 gold. I could also take this one if I needed happiness, because this would give me +1 happiness in addition to the food, but right now I'm sitting at +4.8. So I'm going to take the production and gold. Okay, so I had mentioned earlier that Civ 7 distinguishes between cities and towns differently. The first place that you build with that first settler is a city. Everything you build after that starts off as a town. Let's talk a little bit about what that means. A town has no production queue. Okay, you can buy certain buildings, as you see here, in a town, but you cannot build anything, including units. You can only buy some buildings, and you can buy units. Any production that's made, so you see this town has a production of 7. This actually gets sent as extra gold to the empire. So it's not that it's wasted, it's just towns convert all production into gold. They still grow like a city does. So you can see here, you've got 18 food. You can see here, new citizen in 15 turns. It's got happiness, just the same, but you cannot build anything. You can only buy certain things. Towns can have a focus, and these will give you different benefits depending on what's happening in your town. So again, thinking about, do you have lots of farms? Do you have lots of woodcutters, mines? Maybe this would be, if you have a lot of resources, you're going to get some happiness there and extend trade routes. Now, you can pick this at a certain point in your town's progression. It'll pop up with a thing to say, hey, you can focus the town now. You can only pick one of these, and you cannot change it. Once you pick it, that's that town's focus forever. You can always switch back between a growing town and whichever you pick, but that's the only choice you can make once you pick a specialty. You also don't have to pick a specialty. You can see in this town, I did not pick one because I wanted it to continue to grow. When you have it set as a specialty other than growing town, that city stops growing. And so I've wanted this one to continue growing. I didn't pick a specialty here. So that's the piece on towns. Now, one option you have here at the bottom is convert to city. And this starts at 1,000 gold. And as you build the city and grow the city with coins, this number goes down. So right now it would cost me 350 gold to convert this town into a city. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And it gives you the warning, this permanently upgrades the town to a city. You can't go back on this either. Once you upgrade it, it's now a city for good. So we're going to hit OK. That then gives me the production queue. It also gives me additional buildings like the library and market that you cannot build when it's just a town. So now that we have this flipped over, we're going to start by adding some production stuff first. This is this town here. I'm going to go ahead and put a saw pit in here. So we're going to go ahead and drop this over here. and get that into play. You'll see Hitchity is still a town. I'm going to go ahead and actually spend some gold because I haven't done this yet here. I'm going to build the fishing quay, which gives me more food for boats. I'm also going to pay for, I think, a brickyard because I've got a mine here. This would end up a mine. And then the brickyard also helps with, I don't know that I'll end up with any additional quarries or clay pits, but it's already at +3 and it'll get higher with a few other places. We're going to build this right here, and that does it for the majority of our gold now. Another thing that's new with scouts is this lookout feature. You can see it increases sight range by +1. Now I showed you earlier this, they got to fix these menus. Search. Now if I hit search, it increases a sight range by 1 for 1 turn and it reveals the discoveries. So what's the difference? When you hit lookout, that's kind of like a stay in place command. So that scout is now going to stay in this square. So it's kind of like putting him to sleep, except now he can see one more range. So by putting this right here, it allows me to get visibility deeper into what's going on in the Axumite Empire down here. And I'll just leave him there with that increased visibility to the surrounding area. So great use of scouts once you don't have areas for them to be searching or exploring. Now, if you want to swap out one of your social policies, you have to first take off one that you don't want. So in this case, we're going to get rid of +1 production and science in the palace. So we just click that off, which frees up the spot. And then we're going to slot in all buildings receive 1 gold for resources that are adjacent. Okay, so now putting in a specialist starts to get pretty compelling. So I could still, looks like I have options for +3 food and 1 happiness, or +3 food and 1 gold. I could expand there. I'm probably thinking I'm going to expand this way just to take these 1, 2, 3, right? Because they founded a city over there that's not mine. So I'm probably going to take that. That expands my borders that way and ensures I keep those 2 tiles for now. But the specialists, as you saw, start to get really compelling with all these extra adjacency bonuses on some of these building tiles. Let's talk about the legacy paths and the age progress. So Civ 7 has different ages that you play through in the game, 3 different ages if you play the default game. Those ages end when somebody reaches the end of one of the legacy paths. Okay, there's 4 different legacy paths: culture, military, science, economic. Now, when you start the game off and you have tutorials on it, asks you to pick an advisor that's going to help you manage one of these paths. This can be a little bit confusing because it's going to show you progress along that path. But what it doesn't tell you is you can actually progress along all of these at the same time and not just the one that you've picked. So let me step out just a second. This trophy in the upper left, that's where you go to see this screen that shows your age progress and the progress you've made on the different legacy paths. Now it will tell you in this description what the next step is to move along the path that you're looking at. So in this case for culture, constructing any wonder is the next step I have in progressing. If I look at the military, I need to train 4 military units and I need to assemble a full army. This is done with the commander. This would be adding 4 units to 1 commander. That would be assembling a full army. So that's the next step there. On the science side, the next step I have would be to research mathematics and build an academy. That would move me further along there. And then on the economic, improve trade relations with any civilization. Why is progression on these paths important? The further you progress on a path, the more rewards you're going to get starting the next age. Okay. And it shows you here, if you reach this first point, you're going to get a cultural legacy point, and you're going to get legacy options for the next age. Okay. So it tells you what each of these milestones is going to give you. If you reach the second one, you get a legacy option for the next age, Wondrous Heritage. So it gives you additional choices in how you use your cultural points in the next age. And then finally, if you reach to the very end, you will have a golden age related to whichever path you get this on for the next age. So you see in this case, amphitheaters become a golden age amphitheater, which means they retain all their base yields and adjacency bonuses in the next age. Why does that matter? If we go back and we look, let's look at our main city here, and we look at the buildings, and we've talked about those adjacency bonuses. You can see right now the library gets +3 food, +2 gold, and +9 science based on its base of +2 science, and then all of the adjacency bonuses that are happening to make this library be what it is today. In the next age, this library becomes obsolete. It stays there, but it reverts back to its base value. And I'll show you this when we get there. This is going to have +2 science, and that's it. It loses all of its adjacency bonuses and any of the extras that it's getting from policy cards or anything else. It will be +2 science, and it'll retain the same cost. It's still going to cost me 2 gold and 2 happiness to have it there, but it's going to produce almost nothing. So when we look back at that golden age, and I'll since we talked about the library, we can look at this one. You get the Great Library Golden Age, and academies become the Golden Age Academy. So not libraries, but same thing, same concept. If you were to build an academy in that spot, it's going to have a bunch of adjacency bonuses that are going to disappear at the end of the age. But if you reach the Golden Age, all of those bonuses for adjacency will continue through that next stage. Now, I would advise you, if you're going to try for 2, pick 2. Don't try and golden age all 4 of these. You're going to be too dispersed. It's going to be, I'm not saying it can't be done, but that's going to be really hard to get all of these objectives all the way to the end done, especially at the higher difficulty levels. So focus on one and maybe have 1 or 2 as secondary. But the benefits of getting to a golden age in at least one of these is going to be pretty substantial. You can always at the top here switch from the legacy paths to the rankings, and this will show you how everybody is doing across the board. You can see age progress for Wonders of the World. We're a bunch of losers. Nobody's building any wonders at all. It shows you where you are. So I'm 4 out of 12 on this one. I'm 3 out of 10 for the science, and I'm 7 out of 10 for Silk Roads. So you can always look at this to see how you're doing against everybody else that you've met. You won't see people that you haven't met. One other quick note on the city screen. This isn't obvious, but you can actually queue things by just adding more things. So you see, as I click warriors, it adds a queue right here. I can move things in the queue higher by just clicking on that arrow there. Kind of hard to tell when it's all warriors, but if I picked, say, a chariot, well, that was dumb. I didn't want to do it like that. Let's do this. And then pick a chariot. You can see the chariot's at the bottom. I can move the chariot up higher in the queue by just clicking that up arrow. And so that allows you to kind of move that around, and then you can take stuff out of the queue by hitting the X there if you want to. So that's how they do the queue in Civ 7. Just click on stuff. In addition, you have to go back in there when you select, when nothing is produced, it's going to automatically close this. But you can go back in when you've made that first selection and then add more things into the queue. I should probably pick one or two of these and build them, at least one of them. Yeah, we'll see once that archer's done. And since I came into here, I'm at a spot now where it makes sense to explain resources. I'm going to take a few of these off just so you get a flavor for what's going on. Orient yourself to this screen. You have empire resources at the top, city resources over here on the left, and then below that you have the bonus resources. These are your cities and towns, also called settlements collectively. You can see your capital is always a city, and then you have Kusa City, and then you have Hitchiti Town and Choctaw Town. Empire resources apply across your empire holistically. You don't have to do anything to make them work. They just always are applied across your empire, regardless of how many you have, or you don't have to do any assignments of those. City resources can only be assigned to cities. You cannot assign a city resource to a town. It just doesn't work. But you can assign city resources to only cities. Bonus resources you can assign to towns or cities, either one. Okay, so empire resources, no need to do anything. They just apply. City resources to cities only. Bonus resources to towns or cities. Another thing to note that is different is multiple copies of a resource can be used in the same, they benefit the town. So no longer are you wasting getting additional copies of resources and you don't want to trade them, or you're trading with everybody and so they just sit there. No, you actually will gain the extra benefit from multiple copies of a resource. They have some interesting things too. So like camels will actually increase the number of resources you can assign to a place. So that's kind of a fun one. Now, a couple of things you can do after you've made Suzerain with a city-state. You can help it grow faster. You can give it some more military power. You can take control of a unit. You can also incorporate the city into your civilization well, it takes 10 turns. Once the 10 turns is up, then it's now a town in your empire, and you can treat it like any other town. I'm not going to do that, but that is an option for you. Okay, so here we have the start of the crisis, and there's different crises, different ones that can show up. And so depending on what it is that shows up, you handle them different ways. But ultimately what this does is it requires you to pick negative policy cards, basically, the crisis cards that make it harder for you to manage. So you can see, as part of this crisis, this new town just showed up. They're hostile. And so we're going to move in some guys and start to have some fun. There could be more in other places as well. I didn't even look, and I don't know that I've done this one before. So we'll be learning together. There's that town there. We'll just take a quick, there's one right there, one there, one there. We have nobody in this town, so we're going to go ahead and buy some an archer to have somebody there. The other thing, we can't buy it there, which is weird. I don't know why this happens yet, but I don't know if they changed it or what, but you used to be able to buy city walls. I know I've bought them before. Lets me buy them in the cities. Maybe you can't put city walls in towns. So we'll just have to deal with that the way it is for now. Okay, so this is what we get for this crisis. -6 combat strength against independent powers. That's terrible. plus 100% gold to maintain military units, or minus 10 gold for each city-state you're a suzerain of. And I have 3 or 4. So it's going to be 30 or 40 gold a turn. Jeez Louise. I'm going to take that. Now, once you put these in place, you can't change it. So you're stuck with it for now. If I pick this. And I think we're going to do that. So my gold went down 6 per turn. So that's not terrible. I don't have a ton of military yet, but even if I doubled in size, I'm only losing 12 per turn compared to at least 30, because I'm suzerain there, I think 3. Now the question is, can I cannot influence them, so they're going to be what they are. Okay, now we're getting into some combat. The army commander does have some additional actions down here that you can see. You can set up a defensive perimeter for everybody around him to start building fortifications. Scorched earth. Command everybody to pillage. This is for ranged attack here. All units will have +2 strength. So this allows you to pick a single target, and any of your units that are within range that can hit that target will attack. And then this is the same thing for melee. So if I do this and click there, you can see the ballista attacked as well as those archers attacked. And now I get another promotion. So I can come in here and pick either buffing ranged units or buffing infantry units. I'm going to pick the ranged. And now that I have melee in on this town, I can disperse that town. So I can click this toaster button here. That will gather the units around me and put into this army here. I think we're going to add the others as well. I should have moved them first and then hit the toaster button. But I didn't. So, I can hit it again. There we go. Back into the toaster button. Now we've got 4 units in there. And that is what I needed for the last step that I just completed. It doesn't allow you to go look back to see what you already done, but the last one, if you remember, I needed to assemble 4 units into an army. That's what that did. So now I'm on to the next one here, which would be capturing an enemy settlement, which I don't know that I'm going to get done. Okay, you'll see the crisis evolve as the game goes on, and that's going to require you to eventually here, I'm going to have to pick another crisis card. Here we go. So they add a couple of more. So which new ones do we have? -5 gold for each imported resource. -75% gold and food in towns with a specialization. -1 happiness in all cities for each commander level. Now I have nothing specialized, so I'm going to pick that because that actually doesn't harm me at all. It looks like another city popped up. Oh, that's problematic. But also I can just buy things. Let's buy another commander. Oh, 1,000 gold. I should have looked at that before I just smashed it. And then I want to buy Burning Arrow. Didn't let me buy it. Okay, here's something to point out. So as you may or may not know, each age you actually pick a different civilization to manage during that age. You keep the same leader, but the civilization does change. Now you get a small set that are going to open automatically, but others will only set up or open up if you've met some criteria during the game. And here's an example of one of those. So you can see I unlocked the Ming civilization in the next age. The way I did that was by having 8 resources in one settlement. So There are a bunch of different things you can do. I don't know all of them at this point at all. It's just been the ones that I've gotten on accident, really, without any planning at this point. So I know, for example, one of them, if you settle cities next to 3 different mountains, it'll unlock the Incas for the next one, or the Mayans, one of the two, I forget which, but things like that. There are different things, and at some point in the future I'll catalog all those for everybody, but for now, just know that if you want more choices, you just got to do more things. Here's another unlock I got. Improving 3 camels unlocks the Abbasid civilization for the next age. Unlocking 3 horses does the Mongolians as well. It's a lot of do 3 things. 3 mountains, 3 horses, 3 camels. I've got to add 2 additional crisis policies here. Oh, these are terrible. We'll do inferior tactics. Each imported resource. This is going to be like a lot. I think I have about 8 to 10, so that'll be 40 or 50 gold. This will be minus 30 gold. I'll just do that one. Oh, look at that. That's a lot of dudes. All right, almost done here. Or I guess I am done at this point. I've done them all. So economic, I'll have a golden age, which means all of my cities from the previous age remain cities. Plus 10 granary. That's pretty crazy. Okay, we're getting close to the end here, or actually we're at the end here. One of the feedback things that folks have given, looks like I'll get one more turn. Sometimes it just ends. Like you get that message that the age is ending, and then it's like the age is ended, and it's like, wait a second, what? Like no warning, no nothing. And that does it. The age comes to an end. Okay, so once that age ends, you're going to get rewards based on how much of the different legacy paths that you opened. So you can see I'll get 2 science, 1 culture, no military, and 3 of the economic. You can see the final aged rankings. I was 3 of 7 for the wonders, 5 of 12 for the military, 9 of 10 on the science, and 20 of 20 for Silk Roads. Then this is a graphical representation of how you did and how the others did. This shows you the experience that you get. This has to deal with unlocking. At the start I talked about unlocking those different mementos. You also unlock by using leaders as well. So shows you the results of that age there and how those unlocked. And then if you unlocked specific things, it gives those to you here. Then you're going to transition to the next age. This is where you get to pick which civilization you are going to lead in the next age. You will see these I did not unlock, therefore I cannot pick them. But I can pick from these 5. And so you look generally at what they're good at. You can see their specialties and what they do, special units, special buildings. And the idea is find somebody that fits with your play style and what you're interested in doing in the next stage, whether it's continuing to work on your leading area. In this case, it was economic, or if you want to pivot and try something different, that's up to you. I think ultimately I'm going to pick Ming and continue down the economic and maybe some scientific pathways. And we'll see how that goes. So that's going to do it for this one. I didn't get to everything that could happen in the first age. But that covers a lot of it and gets you thinking about the things that are most important. When it comes down to it, it's a lot about understanding city placement and building placement. Remember that it's all about adding adjacency bonuses to where you're building things, so that when you add specialists, you get even more benefit. You don't have to worry about districts. City placement, super important to be around a lot of resources. The more resources, the better. And duplicates do matter just as much as singles do. You have the border expansion and the way that that's changed. You're no longer just going based off a culture, but you are expanding out your city in the direction that you choose. Every time the city grows, no more workers, the tiles automatically get improved when you pick them. Units don't level, remember that only your commanders level now, not the units themselves, and those commanders provide buffs depending on how you level them, and some other functionality as well. Remember, settlers cannot be captured anymore. Additionally, they have health points, so they can survive a few attacks. They're not super strong, but they can survive a few attacks from enemies, so it's a little bit less risky to send them out unguarded. Remember the scout's additional functionality. It can post up as a lookout and see further. It can also do those searches that allow you to find the goody huts before you've actually uncovered them. That's going to do it for this one. And if you have any questions or things I didn't cover that you were really interested to learn about, drop them in the comments down below, and that could be the subject of my next video. Thanks for watching, and take care.